Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. Tonight we descend into a story that clings to the throat like a noose, a tale of a coastal town where fog is not weather, but warning. The place was small, built on fishing and silence. Wooden docks cracked with salt, nets hung to dry like torn skin, and the air always carried the sea's damp breath. On clear days, it seemed harmless. But when the fog rolled in from the water, the world shrank to pale walls of vapor, and the town grew very quiet. It began with sounds, low, drawn-out howls that drifted across the harbor at night. At first, people thought it was the wind cutting between the warehouses, or maybe the cry of distant ships. But the sound was wrong, too steady, too heavy, and it carried a weight that pressed on the chest of anyone who heard it. Fishermen spoke of feeling their throats tighten when the howl passed through the mist. A child woke screaming, claiming someone had been whispering into his mouth while he slept. And one woman, a teacher, vanished on her walk home from the docks. All that was found was her scarf, tied into a knot so tight it had cut the fabric through. The townsfolk tried to ignore it. But each night the fog returned, and with it, the sound. Louder, closer, always circling, always calling. And some swore that if you looked long enough into the haze, you could see it. A tall, hunched figure with a mouth that never closed, moving slowly through the mist. The first body surfaced a week after the teacher's disappearance. A fisherman found it tangled in the nets, drifting against the pier. The skin was pale, lips purple, and around the throat were deep bruises, the shape of fingers pressed tight, though no hands had left a mark in the mud or on the wood. Marrow, the town's nurse, wrote in her notes, "Death by strangulation, but no human grip matches the size." That night, more townsfolk reported the sound. Not only the long howl, but short, rasping breaths hidden inside it, as if something enormous was trying to draw air through a broken throat. A boy, Thomas, swore he saw a figure in the fog outside his window. He described its jaw, open so wide the edges split into cracks, a grin that trembled as though it would never close. Soon after, the disappearances quickened. A dockhand never returned from his smoke break. A widow vanished from her porch chair, her tea still steaming. A pair of lovers were last seen walking the seawall at dusk. By morning, only their shoes remained side by side, damp with dew. The survivors whispered a single truth. The Howler was choosing. It did not take everyone. It circled in the mist, pressing at the edges of town, listening for those who walked alone. And each night, the sound grew sharper. It was no longer mistaken for the wind. It rattled windows, shook doors, and pressed into the chests of anyone still awake to hear it. People began to bleed from their throats after hearing it too close, thin lines of red running down their collars as if invisible hands had clawed at their necks. Detective Marrow, sent from the city, stood at the harbor one night with her recorder. The fog closed in and the howl came, long and low. Her audio captured something human buried inside, a word stretched thin until it broke. No one could agree on what it said. Some heard, "leave." Others swore it whispered, "breathe." The town now lived by ritual. Lanterns burned on porches all night. Children were forbidden outside after dusk. And every evening, when the fog began to roll in, doors slammed shut and the streets went silent. Because if the Howler found you alone, it would call until you answered. It was a night when the fog came faster than usual, spilling into the town before the sun was gone. Thick and white, it swallowed the harbor, the square, the houses, until lamps burned like floating islands in an ocean of mist. Detective Marrow led a watch that night. 5 volunteers spread along the pier. Their radios hissed static, useless in the heavy air. For a time, there was only silence. Then it came. The howl. Long, low, rising from the water and rolling across the town like thunder. People clutched their throats, some dropping to their knees, gasping as if invisible fingers pressed against their windpipes. One man bled from the mouth before collapsing entirely, eyes open but frozen in terror. Out of the mist, a shape emerged. Tall, gaunt, its skin pale and stretched, its head tilting unnaturally with each step. Its mouth was open wide, wider than a jaw should ever go, and it never closed. From the chest, Rattling breaths scraped like broken glass, pushing that endless howl into the night. It did not walk straight. It drifted, swaying, as though pulled by the fog itself. The lantern light bent away from it, leaving only a silhouette wrapped in its own darkness. One volunteer panicked and swung his light at it. For a heartbeat, the figure's face was clear. Its eyes were black pits, its jaw torn into splits down the sides, and its throat a gaping hole that pulsed with each scream. The man dropped his flashlight. The fog swallowed him whole. His scream lasted seconds before it was drowned in silence. Detective Marrow raised her weapon, but the howler did not advance. It only tilted its head toward her, mouth trembling, and forced a single broken word through its ruined throat. Breathe. The sound crushed the air from her lungs. She staggered, choking, clutching at her collar, blood welled at her lips. The others dragged her back, pulling her away from the pier as the figure faded back into the mist, its howl trailing until it was indistinguishable from the wind. The town was left shaken. They had seen it, heard it, felt it in their bones, and they knew now the howler was no story. It was a spirit that hunted with sound, and the fog was its body. After that night on the pier, Marrow's crossing was never the same. The detective survived, but her voice never fully returned. She spoke in rasps, her throat scarred as if invisible fingers still clutched it. In her report, she wrote only 4 words: "The fog has teeth." The people of the town adapted in the only way they could. Curfews became law. The bell at the church was rung every dusk to warn stragglers home. Families burned salt-soaked ropes at their door frames, convinced the smoke might repel the spirit. Children were taught songs not of play, but of survival. Verses reminding them to cover their mouths and never answer voices in the mist. But the howler did not vanish. Weeks later, another body was found on the beach. Skin intact, but the eyes filmed over white, as though boiled in steam. The throat was collapsed inward, the cartilage crushed from the inside. No rope, no chain, no hand could have made such a wound. Travelers brought stories to neighboring towns of hearing a long, low wail when they passed the coast at night, of seeing shapes in the fog that did not belong to sea or sky. Some claimed the spirit followed the mist itself, drifting inland when the weather turned, and in every retelling the detail remained the same. The sound always began like wind and ended like a voice calling your name. The town grew silent, careful, slower. Even on clear days, no one trusted the open air. Lanterns lined the docks at all hours. Fishermen refused to set out before sunrise, and those who worked the night shift at the warehouses learned to hum as they labored, hoping the sound of their own voices would keep the howler's call away. Detective Marrow left months later, her throat still scarred, her recorder packed away. But in her absence, the town still followed her words. It listens for the breath. Now, when fog rolls over Marrow's crossing, the people shut their doors and press cloth over their mouths. They do not speak. They do not sing. They sit in silence, waiting for the howl to pass. And when the sound comes, long, low, rattling through the streets like the ocean breathing through broken glass, they pray not to hear their name carried inside it. For those who answer are never seen again. The fog always lifts. The sun always returns. But the memory of the sound does not fade. It lingers in throats that ache without cause, in nightmares of open mouths, in the instinct to look over your shoulder when mist curls against the ground. The howler does not need to be seen to be believed. It needs only to be heard. If the fog comes to your street tonight and a howl rolls through your walls, do not mistake it for wind. And if a voice within it calls your name, never, ever answer. Subscribe to the Vault and never walk alone again. Listen in the dark, watch with the lights off. And if the fog thickens, cover your mouth and wait. We upload daily, and one night, Vault Master, the story may be yours.